Okay, functions. We're going to start off with functions first. So the purpose of defining functions in a code is that functions are basically blocks of organized reusable code that only run when they're called upon. So like you define functions for specific purposes and you assign specific tasks in it, and the code within a function just stays there in your program until you actually call it in your main code when you're trying to access the commands that the function performs. It's a useful tool because it helps in dividing complex code into simpler codes, and it helps avoid like code repetition. So if you have a function defined, for example, you want to keep multiplying a function by 4 instead of multiplying a variable by 4, instead of coding that line again and again, you can just define a function for it and you can just call on that function whenever you need to use it. And it helps in like debugging and reduces chances of error, so your code works better with functions. Okay, so how do you declare a function? In Python, you use def space the function name, whatever you want to give it, and then parentheses, and then a colon, and then as most of you might know that Python follows indentation. So your code starts like a tab after the function definition first line. And so either you can have a function declared with no parameters, which means that it doesn't take in a value or an argument. That basically means that your code is doing nothing with variables that you're passing in. It's just doing something on the back end and then it's returning out of the function. But if you do want to pass in variables, then you follow the same format. You do definition, def, function name, and then you can have as many parameters as you want within your parentheses, and then you can have the code for your function underneath it. Or you can even set default parameters for your functions. For example, if I set def function name param1 equals some value, if I call upon that function and I don't pass in a parameter, then it will take value 1 as the default parameter for my function and perform everything within it using that value. How you call a function is just by function name, or if you have parameters, you use the function name parentheses, and then you have the parameters inside your parentheses. So I can show you some examples. These are very basic examples of how you can define a function and call it. So the first function is a function that takes in the no parameters and is just a function to print hello world. So you have your def. My function name is print hello here. I have the parentheses after, and then underneath it I have the code print hello world. And this is how I can call the function, by just typing print hello parentheses. And then the second example is a example of a function that takes in a parameter name. For example, if I want to print hello Pocky, I can have def print hello name. And then when I call upon the function, I pass in the argument Pocky. And then when this code is executed, it will just print hello Pocky. And you can pass in any argument, any name that you want. There are some more examples. Example 3 is shows you how to set a default value for your parameter. So here, even though our function takes in a parameter, I'm calling print hello with no parameters. And what that basically will do is take in the default parameter Pocky as the name. So since there is no parameter in there, it'll just print hello Pocky. But if I did pass in a parameter, for example, I pass in Zach in there, then it will print hello Zach and it will ignore the default parameter. And my example 4 is just a function definition with multiple parameters. So this code will print hello, the first parameter that's passed in, and then the second parameter that's passed in. So if I call on the function with arguments Pocky and Zach, then it will print hello Pocky and Zach. So that's just an introduction into how functions work.